ultimately, I think it's important what you just said, that it's different for different people. But for me, one of the things I'm trying to do, and which you basically said without saying these words, was if somebody brings me on to help them, move their fitness forward, or they have a specific goal in mind, etc., is make it as easy on them as possible.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Clear Path Podcast. I'm John Williams. Today my guest is Todd Lippin of Furthur Coaching. Todd and I explore the mystery of the New Year's resolution and really the comeback in general. We discuss why the success rate of New Year's resolutions is so low and some of the things you can do to increase the possibility of success. We of course also talk about some of the advantages that come along with working with a coach and some of the things you could expect when hiring a coach or working with a mentor. So without further ado, here is Todd Lippin of Furthur Coaching. Hello everyone, welcome to the Clear Path Podcast. I have a very, very special guest, old friend of mine, Todd Lippin. Todd, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure's all mine, John.
It is all yours. And it's funny. I reached out to you not too long ago. Had this idea, and I appreciate you pulling this together so quickly. I think some of the best ideas come together and just like a last minute, just pull it together and dive in. And this one is completely relevant to the time, so I thought it was important for us to jump on it. And it really is all around the idea of the New Year's resolution at the highest level.
Yep.
I know some people who are like completely just really against the New Year's resolution for some reasons that make sense, and others who like also embrace the idea that it is this idea of a new beginning. Here we are, and we're there is the symbolic end of the year, and we have
Turning of the calendar, as it were.
A lot of eating going on, a lot of sinning maybe around the holidays, and now it's time, like, you hit January 1st, and some of those things that are important to you, you want to maybe reset, start fresh. And the fascinating thing to me is, I get it. I've been there. I may even be there right now, which we can talk about in a couple of minutes. But they don't tend to really. These resolutions don't tend to pan out. I mean, the numbers are staggering. I mean, I've heard so many different things. To by week 3, 90% of people have already failed. And it's not even just the idea of the New Year's resolution failing for a lot of people, but just the idea that we as humans are on a daily basis making decisions that are not in our best interest, that we over and over promise ourselves that we're not going to do again. But we then, within minutes of promising ourselves that we're not going to do something, we find a way to convince ourselves that it's okay to break that promise to ourselves. And I just find it fascinating, because even I'm of course guilty of it, but it just shows the power of the human mind, and really the idea that we have like these two forces, Jiminy Cricket and the devil, if you may, working against each other to really, formulate our daily lives. And we so much want to be the Jiminy Cricket, but the devil is always whispering in your ear as well. So just a little bit of back history. Me and Todd are, go way back just as friends, but also Todd he was a coach of mine. He is a coach of mine. He's helped me with my running. But today I wanted to bring him on as the resident expert, working with a lot of athletes, and just like talk a little bit about really just that New Year's, like not just necessarily just your New Year's resolutions, but just like coming to terms with yourself and saying, hey, I need to turn things around, and why they fail, and some of the things that that we can do to really raise the success, the possibility of success
rate.
Success rate is a good way to put it. So maybe I'll just hand it over to you and just like let you kind of like tell me like your thoughts, or like the New Year's resolution. Do you have any sort of like opinions or thoughts on this idea of the the new year, and is it, the timing of it, and any experience with that with athletes?
Well, so I'll say one thing, John, because you said sort of vaguely we go back a long ways. I remember John as as a very good high school runner at my arch rival high school many years apart because I'm old, and I recruited him when I was the grad assistant at Lehigh University. And we were trying to turn things around. Fred LaPlante was the head coach at the time. He and I were trying to, get in some like young, fast people and that were, academically strong. And I brought John in on a recruiting visit with his teammate. And the funny part was, John was 17, and how old was I? 23 or so, 24, 25 maybe. But anyhow, I mean, we just went back and forth making fun of each other because he ran for Paula Six High School and I ran for CBA in New Jersey, which at the time they were the two big powers. CBA's continued to be, sort of a national power, and politics really hasn't. I mean, not ripping on the program. I mean, the loss
No,
when you
it is
lose
what
the
it is.
guy that orchestrated that, when you lose that guy who became the head coach of St. Joe's, which is where he went, it's hard to maintain that. But not what we talked about. But let's just say, suffice it to say, we do go back quite a ways. The New Year's resolution. I don't know why. For me personally, I just never got it. I mean, either you're goal or for me, you're either goal oriented or you're not, and then the goals can come to you at any time. I think it's really more symbolic than anything. It's literally turning the page of a calendar that there's no difference between December 31st and January 1st. Just the way there's no difference between January 17th and January 18th as far as a time frame, although weather different in different places of the country or world. But um, so I think the problem with New Year's resolutions, frankly, is that if the motivation is it's a new year, that's not a really good motivation. And I think that the key to a goal having some success is the level of meaning that gives you the motivation to do it. So if somebody comes up with a goal, if that really means something to them, a one that a lot of my clients and a lot of runners in general have is qualifying for the Boston Marathon. Like that's for most people, that's that's an incredible accomplishment, and it is something to strive for, right? So, you know, the level that you were at, John, when you were really rolling, like that wouldn't have been like a massive accomplishment for you because you were, very gifted, and there were some other things maybe you would have wanted to pursue. But for most regular people, if you can qualify for the Boston Marathon, like that's a really special thing. So to be a part of that provides some meaning for somebody. So I think if it's a trendy or a popular or hey, what's your New Year's resolution? Like in the moment, you might say, yeah, I'm going to do this. But if there's no real like meaning or value behind it, then when it gets hard and you didn't get out before work and you worked all day and you had a crap day and you had to stay an hour late and then you get home and it's dark and it's cold and you have a run on your schedule, I call those the teeter totter days where you could get out and do it. It's probably not going to be awesome, or you could be like, you know what? Brewery ARS is our sponsor in Philly. I think they do the best beer in Philly. I got a 4 pack of Brewery ARS in here that I need to get into. I can just hit that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's much easier. And one thing I was thinking when you were talking about the Jiminy Cricket thing earlier was, um, the right thing is rarely the easy thing. So the right thing in that situation is to go, let me go get take a second, get my stuff on, get out and knock out 45 minutes or whatever's on the schedule, come back, have a shower, and have the ARS beer with dinner. Now I'm going to have dinner a little bit later than I wanted, but I don't know anybody that makes that decision in the teeter totter decision and feels bad about it afterwards. But I know plenty of people who go the other way and don't do it, and then they feel crummy about it later. So I think the reason a lot of New Year's resolutions fail is because they don't have the teeth or the real value of meaning to motivate them to do it when it's hard or when it's inconvenient.
Yeah, and of course, there's hard. It's hard to even quantify like what is meaningful to you, and I
It's
think that's one of
individual.
the
It's
hardest.
completely
Yeah,
individualized.
but at the same time, even like everybody's gonna have. Like, I'm just saying, like you can't measure like how meaningful something is to you. Like you can say that, hey, look, I really, really want to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I really want to lose a few pounds. And at what point does it become so meaningful that you do better on those teeter-tot days? I think I know plenty of people who says, this is so important to me, so important to me. I want to do this, I want to do this, but still don't do it. And so I think that I totally agree with you. Like there has to be, like what do they say? The juice has to be worth the squeeze.
Worth
Like
the
there's,
squeeze. The Airy brothers would say that.
I mean, I think it's just like it comes down to that. But I think part of the problem is like we think it's worth it, but maybe at the end of the day, it's not. And do you start to doubt like that decision? That decision to try to do something because you just didn't get it done, and you start to say, hey, this isn't meaningful enough to me. I thought it was because I didn't quite get to that point to where I need to do what I need to do to get it done. Is there anything that you like say to athletes that maybe are like, of athletes that are like struggling with like not necessarily figuring out what the meaning is? Because I totally agree with you, but maybe do you think there's another piece to it that's like maybe not just like the meaning, but in that moment, like, that voice that's in your head is like a way being able to like work through that.
I mean, what I thought when you were speaking was I think it needs to be a tangible goal. So if somebody's never run under 5 hours in a marathon and their goal is as of January 1, they want to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and 3 months into it, they're not seeing that they've made a ton of progress towards that goal, then then the whole thing kind of gets blown up because it's really demotivating. So I think it's important that if there's a long range goal, that there's intermediate goals along the road. So if we've got mileage goals or we've got, my team does every year, the quote unquote 4 mile time trial, technically 6,400 meters, which obviously is short of 4 miles, but it's neither here
Mm-hmm.
nor there. I'm very anal about that stuff. That's the thing that's going to come up either late February or very first weekend in March. We do it every year. Um, so there's targets along the road, and so you've got opportunities to test yourself or something to look forward to that's not so far down the road and so far beyond where you are currently that those factor into being demotivated. I just spoke to a client earlier today who felt has been feeling stressed out and feeling anxious and wasn't feeling great doing stuff on the bike and stuff running whatever, and then like woke up this morning and coughed up a little blood, went to urgent care, has pneumonia. This is a like, young,
Oof.
fit athlete. And I know that we actually had to talk about, hey, now that you're getting prednisone, now you're getting doxycycline, whatever, to get everything squared away in the next week. That doesn't mean start training full bore. Like you need time off. You need because I know the person. You need time off. And so what I said to her was that um, she needs to not compare herself to what she's like. Oh, I'm gonna be so far behind. There's the I'm behind thing. You just are where you are. You always are exactly where you are, and you can't compare yourself to where you were necessarily last week or 5 years ago or whatever. And so then where you are, we start to move forward from that. I think that it's important to be very realistic about where things stand and what reasonable goals are. So again, I am tying it back into I think it's got to be a meaningful goal so that you will set some other things aside, maybe not going out with the guys or whatever, because I've got this run the next morning, or having one and being the first one to leave with the guys on Friday night because you got long run Saturday or whatever. It just I think it's going to be the how important what you're willing to do to pursue your goal probably is another way of explaining the value or the meaning, right? And so maybe when you're coming up with that goal, you devil's advocate it. Well, what if this happens? Or what would you be with that? Is that goal so important that you'd be willing to do this? And if maybe you shoot at it that way, it starts to get how to handle that situation. So you're being proactive, but also I think having short-term goals en route to the long-term goal help keep you motivated, as opposed to not seeing any movement towards the goal and then getting demotivated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it reminds me of this one. And I actually just to take a step back, I actually really appreciate those check-ins and we're talking about running here, but it's no different than anything in life. Like I think that a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily runners, but I do think that there is an aspect to this podcast that is connected to wellness, just like health, and wellness
Sure.
in a lot of different areas: mental wellness, health, financial wellness, like all these things. And I think that it does tie into, like sometimes, let's say we want to earn $1 million and we're only earning, $50,000 today. Sometimes like those little steps, you can lose interest in the $1 million, or just give up. It's easy to give up because you're like, I can't see progress. And weight is the same way. Like it's better not to weigh yourself every day. Because it's, just and just sticking to those tasks. And there was one thing that we actually adopted in years ago. It was called the 12-month year, and it really clicked with me because the year is a long time. So like, and just tying it into New Year's is like, you might have this goal to like work out every day, and or whatever it may be. Like maybe you want to run 2,000 miles or 1,000 miles for the year, or like maybe you want to do whatever it is, like earn an extra twenty
I
thousand
just
dollars
let a
this year.
girl run a couple extra miles the last week of the year because she was that close to 2,000. So I said, okay,
Yeah,
you got
that,
it.
that I can
She hit
understand
her
that. Yeah,
2,000.
yeah.
Yeah, I said
So
okay. I
yeah,
said no problem.
that totally makes sense. You
She didn't
can't
ask to run like a 30 miler. She's like, can I
yeah
run 8.5 instead of 6? I said yes.
you can't let that one hang out there, especially when it's that
Yeah,
close.
exactly.
And the
That
idea and
close.
the
Yeah.
idea was like, forget about the year, because like, think about it. If your goal is to lose 20 pounds throughout the year, and then you lose zero in the first quarter of the year, then all of a sudden now you're like, oh, now I need to lose 20. Like, now instead of losing 5 pounds every quarter, now I have to lose 7. And then you get a little behind that one, and then it's like all of a sudden, and now all of a sudden your goal was for the year to hit this 20 pounds. You're so behind, and you basically don't do anything because you're like, I missed my goal. I'll wait till New Year's next year. And the idea is like, you can.
Or I'll gain 20, and then next year I could easily lose that 20. Even and now you're at even par, but you sort of lost 20. Yeah,
But
just
it's
kidding.
it's an even bigger comeback at that point.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
um, and and I do think that is an important. I like that. As like, look, if you want to run, Boston, before you get there, you might have to hit these, and then these, like, I guess, what would you call them, milestones, or just
Sure.
checkpoints, or like, if you're getting to that point is to run 9 minutes a mile and you're running 12 now, you have to be able to run 11 before you get to 9. Obviously. So
Yeah, I mean,
um,
there's pretty clear, as you know from, you've done a fair amount of coaching yourself, John. Like there's pretty clear data points that can demonstrate moving your fitness forward beyond like, oh, my 5K PB went from 25 minutes to 24 minutes or 16 to 15 or whatever. Besides those things, like somebody's if they're resting, not resting, if their recovery heart rate is 140, and when they go for their easy runs at 140, because it's got to be an easy run for recovery, and it used to be 8:45 pace, and then 6 months later it's 8:18 pace. That doesn't come out necessarily in like their races, although it likely would. But that's a demonstration of, hey, look, we this is progress, right? And it's a subtle measure of progress. But if your body's able to maintain a faster pace at no greater effort, you have moved your fitness needle forward, and that's a good thing. So
yeah,
having somebody to like point those things out that they might not be aware of helps to keep them motivated and say like, the work's paying off.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that is really, really important, because like I said, sometimes you look up that mountain and you're like, it can be daunting for sure. If, let's
Seems
say,
insurmountable.
yeah, it really does. I mean, and it's better just not to look. But understand.
Or just look at the 5 feet in front of you. Don't look at the top of the mountain.
Well,
I need to get there before I can get up there.
yeah, and I think it's also important to put yourself in that spot and see how good you would feel if you were there, without actually looking at like what has to be done to get there, in as like this, like, mountain to climb, really. I mean, and I think I do think it's important to visualize yourself, and think like, oh man, if I could do this, like, how great would it feel? Like, it would be amazing if I could run Boston, or
100%.
and just to really, really put yourself in that person's shoes of, your future self, and be like, wow, and really think about that. Let's say someone comes to you and they're just like, Todd, like, I'm really struggling, man. Like, I can't get things going. Like, I just, I know I have it in me. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Like, what are those first few things you say to that person? Like, what are the first few things they
So
should
they,
do
so you're
to,
saying somebody's got a goal that we agreed on,
let's say it's me.
and now they're
Like,
just
that's a perfect example. Let's say
it's
it's
John
me.
it's
Like,
John Williams.
yeah, I'm like, Todd, I'm in a rut. I can't seem to like get any like consistency, some rhythm, like get it, I'm just stuck in a rut and I want to get it
I'd say
going. Like,
stop having twins. You need to stop having twins.
well,
You guys keep doing that, and if you keep doing that, it's just you're gonna have less time.
that's a fair
That's
point.
why I'd start with that.
It's a fair piece of advice because one more set of twins and they're like,
One
I
at a
am
time. Just
done.
tell your wife,
I'm
listen,
done.
one at a time.
Yeah, no,
One at a
it's
time.
over. It's over. It's not gonna.
No, seriously. I mean, we need to just, so I would say, well, what's going on? And you'd say, well, whatever it is. Kid, I know you're super busy. Obviously, who knows this, but you've got two sets of twins. And so and they're all young. Like, how old are your older boys?
They're four, and the
Yeah, I
babies
mean,
just turned one.
yeah, yeah. So wait, you're not busy, right? You have a lot of free time. You can just sort of meander and go out for 5 hour
Yeah,
bike rides and stuff. A lot of that.
but I have to say that I'm not the type of person to make excuses because of them. I know I have the time in the day. Like, I'm
Yeah.
always in that zone. Now, I'm not saying it having four boys under the age of 5 at home is making it easier. Um, and maybe I'm underplaying like how busy I am, but I don't like they don't like to use that as an excuse. And I know you're partly joking, but at the same time, like, I think what your point is like we have our lives, you know. Like, I can't compare myself today to my 30-year-old self that was single and,
And no
basically
and no
no
sets of
excuse.
twins.
Yeah, no, zero
Right.
sets of twins.
I,
um,
what would I say to you? I mean, so I know a little bit about your time constraints. I mean, I would say, okay, what do you think's causing that? And it could be a time thing, it could be a motivation thing. So then we mix it up. Hey, don't stop running the same routes. Let's go. If somebody's in Philly, hey, why don't we get in the woods a little bit? Why don't we get down to um, either FDR Park or some different, like do some different things and mix it up. Get out and run with people, right? So let's mix the things up so that you're now looking forward to doing the activity that you've been struggling to get out and
yeah.
do.
And that could
One of
apply
the
for
things
people who aren't runners too. Like, I mean, and I hate to keep
sure, sure,
saying it,
sure.
like you could say,
Switch a little,
so you're
yeah,
saying like switch
switch
it
it up a
up,
little bit.
like, like if they're used to doing like running, maybe they like, or just using the elliptical, and maybe like go join a what do they call it? The orange, the splat
Orange
classes,
Theory. We have a,
orange
we have a
theory.
girl on our team who's an Orange Theory coach. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
actually a very good runner. But yeah, Orange
Something
Theory.
like that,
Yeah.
and like, just, or just change it up, maybe go, and that's twofold, right? That's changing it up, and maybe like around to people, maybe you'll meet some friends or
And then you get community.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this when I was on Airy Brothers last year, but one of the things, I'm always learning, but I'm in year 28 of this, about to be 29 of like formally coaching people. But the idea of human contact and community and training with people, like when that went away for a while, people were really hurting. People really struggled. And when I started reintroducing we have weekly track sessions most of the year. I guess after like 6+ months off, when people came, each one of them at one point or another is like, God, it's so good to be around people. And
Yeah.
so there's an energy there. And I said this with them too, but like even introverts get energy from other people. Like it's probably not as much, and I mean, they probably small doses, etc. But like it's still we're social beings.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're always isolating yourself, I think that's hard. I was coaching a dude when I was at Lehigh. I was coaching a post collegiate guy, and he got very very good. And I was leaving, and Bud Coates is 4-time Olympic trials competitor in the marathon, and he's there, and he had a group of guys he was training with, Todd Thatch with them, a couple other people, and they were doing some different stuff. And I said, honestly, I'm bugging out of here. I'm going back to Jersey. I'm doing whatever with my career. And you have these guys to train with. I feel it's a disservice if I isolate you and have you doing different things than them, and everything you do is by yourself. Like, Bud Coates knows what he's talking about. He's been a four open trial. Like, train with these guys, and I'm happy to chime in. But
Yeah.
and that that worked out pretty well. So I think that the idea of community is important and having people to train with. It's got to be fun. Like, it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, why are we doing it? And so if the goal isn't having, there's no enjoyment attached to the pursuit, it's really hard to stay motivated.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I teeter back and forth on that, you know. Like I'm somewhere
I
like
mean, not fun every
one,
second, but like there's got to be
yeah,
fun involved.
yeah. One day I'm on like the David Goggins side of things, you know, like where it's like, and I don't know if you follow him.
I
Like
know David Goggins. I mean, I don't know him, but I know who he is.
he's one of my favorites. But he, you know, and
He
then
curses a lot.
yeah, he does, he does. But he is a bad dude. Like I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
have you ever he's crazy. And then like he takes the extreme on the side of, you know,
Embrace the terribleness. Yeah.
yeah, like just it should be terrible. Then that's really what you should be doing. Um,
I
but
don't think
yeah,
that works for most people,
it,
frankly.
yeah, but I will say this, that like I think there is some truth to it, in a sense that, you know, most of what we're doing, um, and most of the time we're trying to achieve something at the level that is going to be important to us, is going to take us doing most of what we need to do to get there by ourselves, you know, in the
Sure.
trenches, like doing all those things. And I don't think that goes against what you're saying. Is I do think that, you know, getting out there, and whatever you're trying to achieve, I don't know if it's the same as, like, you know, doing it around other people, but I think most of the time, whatever it is you're thinking about trying to achieve this year is going to have something. Maybe there's a club like that does what you like to do, and you can go and meet other people who are like-minded, or you're just like that idea of like adding some excitement to some of the suck that goes along with it, and making it as part of, you know, your comeback, and the enjoyment of the overall, you know, striving for this goal.
I'm not suggesting that it's all let's hold hands and skip and
Yeah.
sing and then you get really good. And there obviously is a component where if we're gonna, for lack of a better term, like Goggins-esque and really awful and find a way to. I always talk about find a way or a sense of urgency, like when it gets really really hard. If you're trying to go to another level, whatever that level is relative to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you're gonna have to put yourself in an uncomfortable place, stay calm and push beyond that, right? And so from a coaching perspective, you want to put people in situations that you're certain they can do. They might not be, but you want to make sure that they're as prepared that when they get to that, when they're in those situations, they're able to exceed what they've done before, even though you know they can do it. But it still feels terrible when you haven't done this thing that's better than you've ever done it before. You have to feel pretty uncomfortable to do that. We have a workout. If people are doing enough volume and they've been with me long enough, depending on how fast they run or whatever, this war workout that Ryan Grody actually created for me years ago, and it's 8 miles on the track. Metrics are not technically 8 miles, you know what I mean. And there's no stopping. The recovery is 1,600 meters at marathon pace, and it's brutal. It's hard, and I've got a bunch of data about people who've done it and what they ran in the race and blah 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 blah. And anyone who has that on their schedule, like there's a little bit of dread and there's a little bit of all right, let's see. And at some point in that, you're going to feel pretty terrible. But I think it's written in a way that when you get to that point, there's not that much left. And mentally, even though you feel terrible, you're able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and push to the end, which I think is a great way of learning what you can do in the marathon, right? It's not exactly the same. And you obviously can't run a marathon at marathon pace to get ready for a marathon, but you want to put your mental state and and challenge yourself physically in a way that's going to resemble what you need to do on race day. And when people can do that with other people, it's still going to be hard. Like it doesn't become like the workout changes. The workout's the same, but when you're in there and the environment is one and that normalizes that kind of effort, I think it's more accessible, and I think it sort of makes it easier. It doesn't, but you're like, there's power in the group in doing that stuff together. So I do love the Goggins isolation, you do it yourself, suffer. But I also think if you can get the benefits of all of that and have, and have the right community or the right team with you, there's an element of that that's really rewarding. So you're getting the fitness gains, you're getting the mental toughness gains, and you've got this almost like spiritual, if you want to use that word, or emotional sort of tie-in that really brings people together, and I think pushes them all to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the things I miss about like college the most is like my team, like, and I know it sounds cheesy and corny, but like
Not, that doesn't sound
that's
cheesy to
what
me.
that's what you like. That's really what I took away from that, and that idea of showing up together and racing together, and I think that is something that, and it's not necessarily like you have to go out and join a team per se, but I do think that there is a lot of value in that. I mean, is there anything else that comes to mind to somebody who is at this point and they're struggling, um, with whatever it is that's in front of them, and just getting.
Struggling motivation wise.
Well,
I mean,
it's funny.
I
It's
mean,
funny you say
go ahead.
motivation, because like motivation is like, I don't know how much I believe in motivation as it is in its simple, and it's like a definition, the definition of motivation, and it's like just by itself, because. And then the reason why I say that is people, if someone says to me like, I'm just not feeling motivated, well, I would think back to everything that I was successful. I feel real like anything that I feel like I achieved and felt good about. The things I had to do to get to that point along the way, I'd say a high percentage. I was like, let's call it 90% of the things that I did to get to that point, I did when I was unmotivated. I
Sure.
wasn't motivated to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to like come down on your use of motivation, because I know what you're saying, but like I think it's important for us to distinguish between being motivated. Because if someone comes and says it, like, sure, if I'm motivated, like it's easy, like, and I think that it's, and I think the successful people aren't motivated and find a way to do it anyway. I have no, I
I,
still to this day don't know. Like, I don't think anybody. I think some people have some ideas as to how to, get to that point. But
I'll give you an
I guess that's
anecdote
what I'm
that
asking is like,
addresses
how do
that.
you do things when you're not motivated? Because, and I think that goes back to, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but like if that goes back to,
You're good.
people are motivated on January 1st, right?
Yep.
They're excited. They just sign up for the gym. They're motivated. They're motivated. They're fired up, and then it's when they're not motivated and decide not to get it in is when they fail, right? And I don't know if they're seeking more motivation as much as they are seeking a way to do it when they're not motivated, if
Right.
that makes sense. um,
Yeah. Well, it's like, so that would be
Semantics, I guess, but
under.
you know
Well, a little bit, but it's understanding that you're going to have days where you're not motivated, and how do you get out and do it anyhow?
yeah,
And the anecdote I was going to give you, I mean, I was going to say it's all anecdotal, but whatever. This is about me. In 2015, I had gotten very busy as a coach and was really, really, and some people were getting very good, and so that was cool. And we had some people at Kona, then I had two more going to Kona, and Boston. So our women's team was fifth at the Boston Marathon as a team, whatever. And I just wasn't super motivated for my running. Like, I was 45. I mean, I wasn't, I was okay. I had this pretty good run as a bike racer, and I was kind of like, well, I mean, how much further am I going to take that? And then I realized, like, I kind of want to run Boston again because I had a bunch of teammates or clients racing, and oh, it'd be cool to go up there and also be racing. And I just couldn't get myself out the door, but or it wasn't what I thought, and so it was slower, and I was demotivated because I was putting pressure on myself. And I honestly, I reached out to Grody, who I'll probably have announced it by then, but who I just brought on as my, our second coach for further training and racing. And I said, he's a really good friend, and I said, listen, um, could you lay out, 12 weeks for me to get ready for Grandma's Marathon, which is where I wanted to go and get a qualifier. And I said, because if you take the time and lay it out, I'll do everything you say. I'm not going to have you take the time and lay it out for me and then not do it and disappoint you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to do that. And that's exactly what happened. That's actually where that war workout came. That's exactly what happened. He wrote it out, and I did every single thing he said for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. Like if I was banged up or like really tired, I might have pushed stuff, and I was like, "Hey, can I push this to Thursday?" And he's like, "Yeah," or whatever. And I said, I want to go there. I wanted to run like just under 250. I wanted to run at like the semis of the 1500. Like I wanted to run hard, but have more in me and not really be beat up that much so I could sort of seamlessly resume training again because I wanted to run really well at Boston and the next year. And that's what I did. I ran, what did I run? I ran 125.03, 124.16, something like that, or 13. I ran like 245.16 or 245 or 249.16 or 249.19, something like that. And negative split it and was controlled. And like I literally got through the shoot, got to my phone and called him and like burst in. I was like crying. I'm like crying to him on the phone. Like if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have done this. Like I can't thank you enough. And so it's different for different people, right? So I can give you an example of something that happened because I lived it. But I
Well,
think
just
if
real
you've
quick, just
got,
real quick. So, like, I'm sorry to
yeah,
cut you off, but I want to clarify what you just
yeah,
said. So, like, so to me, what I'm hearing is that, like, you know, you have respect for Ryan, and and you know
yep,
what he's going to put on paper. That all you have to do is put your head
yep,
down and find a way to get that done, and you're going to
yep.
see results, right? And
I had no doubt in
so,
my
so,
mind if I did
so,
what he said, I would be
so
successful.
we're what you're finding. There's two parts to this. There's not just somebody giving you what's like because if someone you didn't know or respect,
Wouldn't have had the same value or meaning to me.
yeah, we get like so if they give you these plans, so I think the takeaway is like maybe people out there can find somebody that like kind of fits that mold where like and maybe it involves them spending a little bit of money or like searching around for that person who like what I mean like and I we joke about it is like but that's I mean and we'll come back on this but like I think the idea is like finding that person who maybe has done it themselves or whatever it is and you can just kind of reach out to them or put your trust in them and just like literally just listen to them and I know it's probably easier said than done, and you're lucky enough to have someone like Ryan in your life who you knew in your head. You're like, oh, this is the answer. Like this is like what if I get him to put down on paper like what I need to do. All I need to do is show up, and you knew that you're capable of just showing up and like could kind of put yourself in the shoes of that person who might be, you know, late at night and it's cold and you need to get the run in. You're like, no, this is on the on.
How do I tell him I was too tired or it was too cold, I couldn't get my run in?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Well,
Because he would have called me right out. He would have been like, I want to continue my streak of never using profanity on a podcast. So, I mean, I'm not going to say what he would have said, but it
yeah.
probably would have involved profanity. And I
Yeah,
would have been
it's
like, I have that coming. Like, I'm not going to excuse my way out of it, but
yeah.
also I don't want to waste his time. Like, I don't want to waste his time.
But also, let's take it to what you're probably going to say. Is you said that it's not everybody is different, right? So, like and there's those coaches that I think that aren't going to be the motivators. They're going to be like the more tough love kind of people, and that works for some people. And that's clearly what Ryan would have offered. Most people here don't know who Ryan is, um, but yeah. So back to what you were saying is I don't know if you even remember what you were going to say before I cut you off.
No, I mean, ultimately, I think it's important what you just said that it's different for different people. But
Yeah.
for me, one of the things I'm trying to do, and which you've basically said without saying these words, was if somebody brings me on to help them, move their fitness forward, or they have a specific goal in mind, etc., is make it as easy on them as possible. Like people are busy and you know, they have children and they have jobs and whatever. So if I can remove an element of stress and they just need to do what's laid out for them and they're going to be successful. And you look at, it is what it is. But you look at people I've worked with and what that's yielded for them. There seems to be some evidence to demonstrate that that's what's going to happen. Then people are going to be willing to do it. And there is accountability. Like if somebody doesn't do something I don't like, call them up and yell at them, but they're going to get a note from me or something that says, "Hey, John, what's going on? You haven't posted since last Thursday." And
Yeah.
so it's a good and a bad accountability. And frankly, I think for most people it's good because they know I care, and because somebody pays me for the month, and like they could not do anything, and I could never reach out to them, and like the money's already in the account. But I don't like that. Like I don't like it. I wouldn't be a very good coach, but maybe I'd be a better business person if I didn't ask people what was going on if they weren't posting any training. But that's not, I do this because I love to do it. And if since I love to do it, I want people to have the same enjoyment that I had as an athlete, watching myself get better and improve. And the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that I forge with coaches are things like Fred LaPlante and I we talk regularly, and it's, he worked with me when I was 18, 1988. And
Yeah.
he brought me with him to Lehigh. We're close to this day. It was an important relationship that I think, again, I keep coming back to this and you keep kind of rolling your eyes. I think it has value and meaning.
I wasn't rolling my eyes.
They're like,
No,
yeah, but what's the answer?
no.
I'm like, I
Well,
don't know. It's
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 funny
different
you
for
say
different
that
people.
because, you know, as a, and just using running as an example, just because it's something that like people have known me for, a long enough period of time, know that I was associated with running. I ran, like whatever you want to call it. Not everybody knows that, to
Sold a
what extent,
specific brand of running
but
shoes, had a
yeah,
shoe store, lots of running things.
they're also very confused when I tell them I have a coach, because they're like, well, wait a minute, like
Yeah.
you do coaching yourself, like what and why? You clearly know what you're like, what you're doing, like, and and I get why and where they're coming from and why they're saying that. But we all know really what we have. If you really think about it, when it comes down to it, if you want to find out what you need to do in this day and age, you can find out. You could find out enough where like you could put something together for most people, and you're going to see results. Like I'm a fan of, like, for most people. And now, as you get to a higher level and you're like trying to take things to the next level, like maybe the actual tactics and what you're actually doing become more important. But for the most part, it's not necessarily as much about, what you're doing, which is not, I'm not downplaying that at all. Um, but as much, and we could argue over like how much one versus the other is important. How much, what you're doing versus like, the assistance and help in getting it done and actually taking action
Right.
and doing these things comes into play. And you're going to be, it's hard for you because like you have those people who like literally you have to stop them from doing things, and it's not, and that's
I think a lot
probably
of
a
what
good
I do
example.
is getting people to like,
Pull the reins
if
in
you're
on
people
them.
could see us, but like grab them by like the collar on the shirt, like let's calm down, let's calm down.
And
There's a
that
lot of
that's
that.
really where I think people
Not literally. I don't put
they
hands on
miss
them, but you know what I mean.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that that's like an important note, because we if we say, if we're not at a high level when it comes to certain things, it doesn't have to be like, it could be anything. If we don't feel like we're at a high enough level, we don't feel like we need to find help from somebody. It's not necessary, or so I always, and I'm sorry, but the running example is perfect. Like people come to me like, hey, I want to run this marathon, and they're like, oh, well, I found this Hal Higdon program online, and I'm like, all right, well, like, and for those who don't know, like Hal Higdon's like this like very popular cookie cutter, like, one program for everyone. And I always say, hey, like hire a coach, and they say, oh, well, and in their minds, they don't see the value at that point yet in like working with somebody else that can bring to the table some of these things, and that are in my mind way, way more important. Because I'll say to them, hey, look, yeah, great. If you do everything on that plan from Hal Higdon, I guarantee you're going to be great, and you're going to do the marathon, and you're going to have a great time. But I can tell you right now, just having that program from in front of you, not knowing who Hal Higdon is, what's behind it, what's the reasoning behind it, and all these things that we've already kind of touched on, and you're not going to do all of it. You're just not.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
can tell you that what people miss out on so many times, it's not just athletics. It's as a financial advisor, I think people say, "Oh, well, I could just go online and find out how to invest in a portfolio, and I'll be fine." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." But I can tell you right now, when the market crashes, you're going to pull it out, and you're going to make some really, really bad mistakes. That it's not just about like the tactics behind what you're doing. It's like, it's all these other things and making these decisions and helping you through those times where things get rocky. That is where the real value comes into play. And it's hard to kind of put like the value on that from a dollar perspective. But, and that kind of brings us to the point, and we've already kind of talked about this, is you're kind of biased as a coach, but what are some of the things that you say to somebody is like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring a coach. Why do I hire a coach versus just not hiring a coach, for the lack of a better word? Like going in the direction to self
What
help, the Google, try to read a book, direction, I
I
guess.
mean, I'll tell people, and this is something I've said to a lot of clients. I say when you're thinking about a coach, there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of information out there. You need to find somebody who, when you speak to them, they demonstrate content knowledge and a knowledge base about uh, systems and different systems and aerobic system and anaerobic system and threshold running, and they can demonstrate that they have a knowledge base that is suitable for your needs. You want to see that they have had success over years with a variety of talent levels. And the other one is you want to make sure that you feel at ease, or that you have a connection to them. You have a good rapport is the word I use.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're really knowledgeable and they're really successful, and you think they're a JO, why would you want to give them your money? So I think if you have those three things, you've got a good candidate for a coach. And I think a lot of people. It's funny how people do this, and I think it's a really simple thing. So and so is really fast. I don't even have a specific person in mind. So and so is really fast. They're going to be a great coach. Well, are they? Because like, was Wayne Gretzky, who's indisputably the greatest hockey player ever, was he the best coach ever? Or Michael Jordan, sorry, all you millennials, who's indisputably the greatest basketball player ever, was he the best coach ever? There are different skill sets, right? And you can possess both skill sets, but they're not interwoven. And frankly, you find a lot of in a lot of professional sports, you'll find a player who wasn't a dominant player, who watched a lot, who was observant and saw how um, teamwork, team dynamics, and all that stuff kind of worked, which makes them a more effective coach. And I think I took my talent kind of as far as I was going to. I wasn't super gifted, and I did a few things that were pretty good, but really enjoyed the coaching side of things, and had relationships with coaches that we talked a lot about training and the whys. I was doing that when I was 15. I used to drive Heath crazy at CBA. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And it was just always a love of mine. I knew at 15 I was going to, I wanted to be, I knew I was going to be coaching at some level. And so anyhow, those are the things I would suggest that somebody's looking for. And I say the other thing it brings to the table is accountability. And you have somebody whose their expertise and enthusiasm is going to be encouraging for you, right? You want to have similar energy. Um, Tell you another one. I was coaching this couple, and I still coach the wife, and the husband hasn't been doing as much training. He runs some with his wife or whatever. And they both he was a D1 swimmer. He was a stud. He was a all Big East swimmer, academic All American swimmer. She was a soccer player and runner in high school, and wasn't doing sports in college. But several years after, they were in their late 20s. They got into triathlon, and so they both qualified for 70.3 World Championships out in Las Vegas in 2013. And she has the same energy as me. We're excited, we're enthusiastic, extroverts, whatever. And he's Australian, and is a little bit more reserved. So I would try to not interact exactly the same with him as I was with her, because I didn't want to like be in his like overwhelm him, because I knew he was a little more introverted. And at one point, he pulled me aside. He's like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Sure." He's like, "You know how you interact with Alexis, and like you're all fired up and blah blah blah." And I would speak to him like more cerebrally, like, "Oh, we need to work on this, blah blah." And he goes, "I could use some of that. I could use some of that energy." And I'm like, "All right." but I was in my fear of trying to not overwhelm him and have him be like, Jesus, like you're so much. And I was, I got it wrong, and he talked to me and like, okay, great, I can do that. Or you can go the other way. I think when you have somebody who's been doing it a long time, they've got a few different tools in the toolbox. So there's different ways to approach it depending on what's going to work for the individual.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something that really stood out to me is I think the first thing we want to do is find the person who is the best at what they or was the best at what you're trying to achieve, and the fact that they achieved it. Now, we could use so many examples where that's not true. It doesn't mean it couldn't be true. Um,
Sure.
yeah, but I think it doesn't, just because somebody is good at something doesn't mean they're going to be able
Different
to
skill sets.
help you to get to that point. So I think it's an important thing just to go back on what you said to keep in mind. I like Isaiah Thomas, maybe. I mean, he was.
I
I mean,
mean, I can go off on Isaiah Thomas when you've had 2 years of college and you're getting managerial positions as a GM of a professional sports team. It doesn't seem as if, I mean, he was probably qualified to be the shooting guard coach, but like I
yeah,
don't know if he was qualified to run a professional sports team.
we could go
Maybe I'm wrong.
we could go on and on, and but I do think that what you said resonates with me, is like rapport. I think you want to don't underestimate having respect for that person, and I think that's important because it goes back to what you said about like you working with Ryan. I think you're less likely to want to disappoint somebody that you respect. I mean,
100%.
maybe that is a given, but it's worth noting.
No,
I
it's worth
think that
mentioning. Yeah.
again, because I think that there has to be a level of respect and understanding there, and I think that just holds true in a lot of the areas in our life, and then but also know that everyone's going to have different philosophies, and I think that's going to kind of come back on your end to understand what the different options are, and there is going to be a little bit of homework that you're going to have to do, and understand, like we mentioned Orange Theory Fitness, like there is a theory behind um, what they do, and like keeping your heart rate really really high, and like like burning calories and whatever it may be. um, there is a lot of opinions out there, and there's a lot of stuff. I personally I'm just, call me crazy, but I like to know that something that has a little bit of science behind it, and isn't just
Science,
100%
what's that?
100% built on anecdotal proof, just because
Sure.
but but I will also say that there's value in that. Like if you have two or three friends or a bunch of friends who've done something and seen a lot of success with it, there's no reason I think you should consider that.
Sure.
Just especially if they're people that you respect. Um, so I guess that kind of brings us to the end here. I mean, we could probably go on for hours, and maybe we'll revisit this, in 3 months, where we can kind of revisit some of those people who are listening today and how they're doing, and what they're looking to achieve. But we're for those who are listening or looking to achieve fitness goals, and whether it be running, triathlon, where can they find you, and where's a good place to find your stuff, if you may?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I run my own coaching company, which is Furthur Training and Racing. The Further is spelled with two U's, Furthur. And so I have a website, Furthur training.com, on Instagram as well. I think if you put Further Training and Racing, I think it's Further underscore training underscore racing. Um, so we post pretty regularly there. We're on the track most of the year. We're on the track on Wednesdays, long run Sundays. Some other silly stuff. Sometimes Jim, my dog, shows up on there. But um, yeah, I mean that's where I'm at. I'm based in Philadelphia, but my mom's in Florida, so I spend some stretches of time down there. Although I never hang out with John when I'm down there, unfortunately. But maybe we'll rectify
You're
that
you're
this
in
year.
hanging with the Gators
Uh,
in the center of the state in Wildwood, Florida.
man, man, yeah, mine was in Wildwood, Florida, near the villages, but not in the villages, as my mom would be quick to point out. Um, yeah, I mean that's my deal. Been at this a long time, and we just started year. We're done 19, 20, 21. So this is the start of the fourth year of my own thing, and we've grown each year. I added a coach a couple weeks ago. I just added him to the website. I need to get a better picture of him, but um, looking forward to bringing on more people. And as we've gotten busier, it's necessary to grow. And Ryan and I had talked about it quite a ways before. It's that I could be proactive from a professional standpoint as opposed to scrambling, because I don't ever want to be at a place where I feel like I'm stretched too thin and I'm not able to give the people the attention that they deserve, frankly. And so I'm not there, and we're already ready for more people. So yeah,
Good,
that's kind of the deal.
good to
I'm
see you're
I'm at a
expanding.
fair amount of races too. Yeah, it's good. It's been good. It's a good problem to have. It got a little hard late 2020, but 21 was a good year. I think that races coming back certainly helped.
Of course, yeah. It's most of us have never trained through a pandemic, so it was a whole different uh, new normal there for sure. And I'll put all that in the show notes,
Awesome.
and just to kind of lay all that out, and anything else that was maybe relevant that we talked about here today, I'll also post some links in the show notes and a post to your all your IG and your social, if you may. But thanks
Sure.
everyone thanks Todd for joining us. I really
Of course.
appreciate your insight.
Thank
Of
you,
course,
John.
we'll have you back soon. And to all the listeners out there, thanks for joining us. Until next time, you guys all have a great new year, and we'll talk to you all soon.